Buying a business doesn't take millions of dollars. You just need this strategy. I run an air filter manufacturer that makes $22 million a month and have spent $10 million on multiple businesses to help grow my empire. These are my lessons from my biggest wins and even some failures in business buying. By the end of this video, you'll understand what separates winners and losers who buy businesses. I'll tell you now, it's not about how much money you have. If you think you need $1 million to buy a business, you've already lost. If you want to go fast, start something. If you want to go far, buy something someone else already built. A few years ago, I closed a deal that completely changed the way I think about buying businesses. And here's the wild part. I bought the business with $0 down. We negotiated a 3-year earnout where the seller got paid only if the business kept performing. There were no bank loans, no big capital outlay, just an agreement between two people, one looking to exit and one willing to put in the work. And it worked. The business was already stable. I came in, added structure, cleaned up the systems, grew it, and funded the seller's exit using the cash flow from the business itself. That's the power of creative deal making. If you're just getting started, this kind of owner finance deal or earnout is my favorite strategy. Here's why. You keep your risk low. You preserve capital for unexpected issues, which I promise you will come up. And most importantly, the seller stays incentivized to help you succeed. Because guess what? Most sellers don't actually have a business, they have a job. They've built something valuable, but it's often tied entirely to them. So when you show up with energy and sweat equity, you're not just buying a business, you're offering them freedom. This is less like a handoff and more like an apprenticeship. They guide you, stay involved, and help you win. Because when you win, they get paid. Here are a few ways these kinds of deals actually get done. First, straight seller financing, where you pay over 3 to 5 years from cash flow. Another is performance-based earnouts. The seller gets paid only if you hit agreed revenue or profit targets. Or perhaps a hybrid. Some seller financing, some earnout, with a small bank loan or equity partner. If you want a full breakdown of deal structures, subscribe to this channel. I'll break down each one in future videos. If you're buying your first business, here's the structure I recommend. Seller note or earnout over 3 to 5 years. This means low or no upfront cash. Payments are structured to be comfortably covered by operating cash flow. Ideally, it's refinanceable with the bank by year 3 to 5 if needed. This gives you time to learn, stabilize, and grow without overextending yourself. You're de-risking the buyout and giving yourself a real shot at success. The best part? These deals are everywhere, especially in small businesses owned by boomers who just want out. You just need to know how to find them and structure them right. When you know what you're doing, buying a business is simple. You don't buy a business for its numbers. You're buying the operations behind those numbers. And if you don't understand those operations, you're gambling, not investing. We bought a residential HVAC business in South Florida for $4.5 million. On paper, it checked all the boxes. Revenue looked strong. Profits were stable. We thought we were getting a turnkey business that would help us expand our footprint fast. But we didn't understand the space. Not really. We didn't understand how service sales worked. We didn't know how much pressure there was to make money today, even if it meant cutting corners. We didn't grasp how many home service companies are essentially sales organizations disguised as repair shops. We also didn't realize that some of the revenue was coming from other companies bundled together, and we didn't catch it until months later. The business slowly bled money as we tried to unspool the mess. We weren't buying a business, we were buying high-pressure sales habits we couldn't stand behind, broken incentives, and shaky customer relationships. And we didn't know it until it was too late. That's the mistake. You think you're buying the profit and loss, but you're really buying the people, the culture, and the habits behind those numbers. So if you're thinking about buying a business, here's what really matters behind the financials. What actually drives sales? Is it repeat customers or salespeople pushing one-time jobs? What happens if the owner walks away for a month? Are there key employees who hold the business together but could leave tomorrow? Are the numbers real, or are they blended across entities, time periods, or business lines? Do the incentives encourage short-term revenue or long-term customer trust? In our case, the sales tactics didn't align with how we wanted to run the company. We didn't want to build on shady tactics just to make our money back. So we shut that part of the business down and folded it into Filterbuy HVAC Solutions with a commitment to run things differently. And it was painful, I gotta be honest. But it was one of the best educations I've ever paid for. If I had to do it again, I'd spend more time in the field before the close, not just after. I'd interview frontline employees, not just managers. I'd mystery shop the company and its competitors. I'd treat due diligence like a forensic audit, not just a checklist. And more importantly, I wouldn't buy unless I truly understood how the business makes money and what has to go right every day for that money to show up. Because here's the thing, the bigger the check, the less margin for ignorance. If you're buying a business, especially outside your circle of competence, you need to have a deep understanding of operations and ability to detect hidden risk and the discipline to walk away even if the upside looks shiny. That $4.5 million mistake taught me something I now live by. When you buy a business, you're not just buying its cash flow, you're buying its habits, its culture, and its blind spots. If you don't understand those, you're the one walking into the trap. Now, you have the tools to buy a business, but look for these red flags as much as you can. You're not buying a business, you're buying a person. And the second they leave, so does the profit. Most buyers think they're buying a cash flowing machine, but what they're really buying is a solo act, a business that looks profitable because the owner is doing the job of 3 people for free. They're the CEO, the top salesperson, the head of operations, and the bookkeeper. The second they hand over the keys, you realize the machine wasn't profitable, it was just being powered by unpaid labor. Let me give you a few of the biggest red flags I've seen in deals, and almost gotten burned by, and in some cases have. By far, the most common is the owner as everything illusion. The seller says it's running great, but they're actually the operations manager, the salesperson, and the tech lead all in one. Once you factor in salaries to replace them, the business is losing money. The next one I see often is one-time revenue spikes. They show strong growth, but dig deeper, and it's because of one big, non-repeatable contract, such as a COVID windfall. They know it's not sustainable, but they dig in the numbers to boost valuation. Then you have customer concentration, like a client that makes up 50, 70%, even 90% of revenue. If that customer walks, the business dies. Walk away or price it like it already happened. Oh, and by the way, the seller will always tell you that this never happens. But I've seen it time and again firsthand. Don't believe them, it's too risky. Just walk. Another one is unverifiable cash flow. Owners will always love to tell you that they don't run everything through the books. Translation, you're buying vibes, not value. But I've seen it so many times. The last red flag is no systems. There's no CRM, no job tracking, no repeatable sales process. The financials may look okay, but nothing's operationalized, which means you'll be reinventing the wheel from day one. When you're buying a business, you want to find terrible owners. Let me explain. One of my favorite Warren Buffett quotes is, I try to buy stock in businesses that are so wonderful that an idiot can run them, because sooner or later, one will. When I'm looking to buy a business, I don't want perfection. I want a good business run by a mediocre operator. Why? Because that's where the upside lives. If the business has consistent demand, solid fundamentals, and a loyal customer base, but the owner is doing everything themselves, flying blind, or ignoring key systems, then you're staring at an opportunity. Because if you can bring structure, install repeatable processes, and add sales or marketing know-how, you can create massive leverage out of something boring. The best businesses to buy aren't flashy. They're not AI startups or brand new apps. They're the boring businesses that keep the world running and often get overlooked. A buyable business looks like this. It runs without the owner hovering over every detail. It has repeatable processes. The staff knows what to do and how to do it. The books are clean, and the product or service has consistent demand even when the market dips. It's boring, and that's exactly why it works. Because if you can add structure, systems, and sales skills to that, you unlock scale without needing to reinvent the wheel every time you want to grow. So why are boring businesses usually the most profitable? Because they follow stable, predictable rules. A toilet in New York works the same as one in Texas. An air filter in Florida needs replacing just like one in Ohio. A business needs its HVAC serviced whether the economy is up or down. These are component businesses and service businesses with huge addressable markets, consistent need, and simple operating models. And that's where the magic is. You're not inventing demand, it already exists. You're just showing up with better systems, better service, and better structure. A mature business shows itself in the details. Are there standard operating procedures, or is everything in the owner's head? Can employees describe their roles clearly, or do they say, ask the boss? Is the business tracking KPIs and hitting targets, or just reacting week to week? Are customers happy and returning, or is it a leaky bucket? When those pieces are in place and the owner still is in the weeds, you know the opportunity isn't in the product, it's in the execution. If you're just getting started, here's where I look. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, high demand, low innovation risk. Component businesses, like air filters or lighting, basic parts. Home services such as pest control, installation, duct cleaning. B2B services, janitorial, waste management, equipment rentals. Niche manufacturing or distribution. Niche businesses where small improvements go a long way. Here's how to test whether a business is owner dependent. Ask, if the owner took a month off tomorrow, what would break? If the answer is everything, that's not a deal killer, that's the opportunity. Because that's exactly where your systems, your discipline, and your vision can turn a decent business into a great one. Once you buy your business, you need to understand something critical. You don't get paid to buy the business. You get paid to run it better than the last guy. Once you close on a business, the real work begins. And when I spend millions on a business, I'm not a passive investor. I'm there for a full takeover. Right now, I'm in the middle of negotiating a deal in my industry, a business I know extremely well. I understand the customer, I understand the operational pain points, and frankly, I understand the business better than the sellers do. That's why I'm going in with a plan to overhaul the entire thing. I'm replacing the management team, bringing in leadership with more focused expertise, and reshaping the go-to market strategy from the ground up. This isn't just a cosmetic change, it's a strategic repositioning, and I can do it confidently because I've lived the pain points myself. You don't get to make high-level moves like that unless you understand the terrain. Here's the truth most first-time buyers miss. Operations is the blind spot that will crush you. People spend months obsessing over financials, negotiating terms, and lining up financing, but once they take over, they have no idea how to actually run the business. They assume the team will keep doing whatever they're doing. But in most small businesses, the team was doing just enough to follow the owner's lead. When the owner leaves, momentum dies, unless you step in with a plan. That's why I always say, if you don't understand how the business works day to day, you better bring in someone who does. If you're buying a business outside your experience, here's what I do. First, hire or partner with someone who's already run this kind of business. Bring them in during due diligence. Let them poke holes. Ask them what they would do on day one. Second, use consultants as pre-hire intelligence. Pay someone who has built or operated in the space to walk you through the real issues. They don't need to be on payroll, they need to be on your radar. Third, build your plan before you own it. If you can't articulate what needs to change in the first 90 days, you're not ready to buy. Here's the litmus test. Could you explain to a room of employees how this business makes money and where the biggest bottlenecks are today? If not, you need help. And that's okay, but you need to get help before the check clears, not after. Buying a business without understanding how it runs is like buying a car without knowing how to drive. Sure, it looks great in the driveway, but the second you hit the highway, you're in trouble. That's why I preach experience, skills, and trade level knowledge. Because when it comes time to take over, you need to lead with confidence, not confusion. The best deal in the world won't matter if you don't know how to run it. Now that you know how to buy a business, watch my video on boring businesses that rarely fail to find a business idea.